Hello, in today's video we will be talking about naming rules, comments, and indentation. To do that, let's go back to our Hello World project. So we will open the solutions file. And here we want to look at Form 1 Designer. And to see the form, we need to go and double-click on form1.cs. So right here we have the Form 1 and we have form1.designer.cs. Let's start with the naming conventions. If we try to rename this button, and we would like to go to name, not to the text, we need to know that we cannot enter any number or any special character. So all of those are not allowed when trying to name a control. The only special character that's allowed is the underscore. And you can have the underscore anywhere in the name. So you can even have an underscore in the beginning of the name of the control. So basically, we are allowed to use alphanumericals, but not any special characters. Okay, so this is as far as naming convention is concerned, and this goes for all the controls that are available in C#. So right here, if I would like to change the name of the form, I need to follow the same rules. So if I try to include any special characters, C# would not allow me to do so. And of course, if I want to add the underscore, it is feasible. So I can add in underscore right here between hello and word, and then between word and form, and that would make my code a little bit more readable. Let's go back and change that back. Let's go to the code that we have written for our display button click. Now, like we said before, if you look at this code right here, you can see that these are the .NET framework libraries that we're using. So these are the namespaces that are included in the .NET framework that allows us to use the controls. And here, our namespace. So this is our code. Whatever code we write for our application goes right here. Now, whenever you write code, and as a good practice for developers, it is good to have comments. So keep in mind that when you write code, and when you're out there writing code in the business world, in the real world, other people will be reading your code. So you need to make sure that your code is as readable as possible. And one way to do so is to add in comments. And comments are just simple statements, not really part of your code, but they're descriptors for your code. So if you're trying to describe your code, if you're trying to tell other developers looking at your code that some functionality is missing, this is the place to do so. And to write code, there are two different ways. You can either use a slash and a star, or and this is helpful when you're trying to add several lines of comments. So for example, right here, we can add in business and development, for example. We can add in the name of the form. And then you can, for example, add in your name. Another good practice is to add in the date. So that would be helpful for anybody reading the code. If it is a large company and your code, they can go back and find you. And ask questions if they have any questions about your code. Now, another way to write comments is the double backslash, and what you can write is simple sentences like anything describing your method, for example. So right here, we can write display hello world. after clicking the display button. So that would make your code a lot more readable, and it would be helpful for others to understand your code. Now, the last thing that I want to go over in this video is indentation. If you can have our code organized in namespaces, classes, and methods. And you can see that we have our code indented to show or to illustrate the different content areas or the different containers in our code. So, and that makes it a lot more readable. Now, let me show you an example of code that is not indented. So let's say our code is written. If our code was written right like this without any indentation, it would be very difficult for anybody to read this code. However, if you look here, when we have several indentation, you can see that this specific code is related to this hello world form method. Right here, you can see that this code is included in the display button click method, and this code is describes the class code, and this code is related to the namespace code. And you can see here that in C#, when we try to include an area or a piece of code for anything, for example, for methods, we need to open the method with a squirrely bracket and then close it. And if we're missing a bracket, for example, we will get an error. So if we try to start our application, we will get an error because we are missing a bracket right here. It's not your code you to recognize and find your errors. When you have your code indented the right way, it is a lot easier for you to read your code and for you to find errors in your code. So, and also Visual Studio by default indents your code. So when you try to write anything, so for example, if we try to add in a different message box right here, you can see that Visual Studio put this new line in the right spot, in the right place. So it is by default indented correctly by Visual Studio. So this is another very neat feature that is provided by the Visual Studio. It automatically indents your code. And if you see that it's the way you really think it should be indented, that would probably mean that you're doing something wrong. So keep that in mind. So if you're trying to add in a new line and it doesn't go where it's supposed to go, well, maybe you're doing something wrong. Okay? So in this lecture, we went over some naming conventions. We said that we can use alphanumericals. We're not allowed to use any special characters except the underscore. In our code, it would be easier and a lot better to have comments, which make your code a lot more readable. And also, indentation is very important. It allows others to read your code. It also helps you to read your code and find errors if you have any.